today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record. For me, I am on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I also pay my respects to any First Nations people who may be listening today. I acknowledge their continuing connections to land, waters, skies, culture, and country. I support Voice, Treaty and Truth for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and I encourage others in the Take On Board community to do the same. Tracy is the CTO at Mentorloop with extensive experience in scaling SaaS businesses and fostering high-performing teams. She's passionate about people-centric cultures, collaboration, governance, and building software that empowers people. Tracy also organises Tech Leading Ladies, a community that supports women in tech leadership. She thrives on solving complex challenges and driving meaningful change, which is why she's eager to increase gender diversity in Australian boards. Welcome to the Take On Board podcast, Tracy.
Thank you, Helia. That was a beautiful introduction.
Thank you. Now, I am really looking forward to our conversation about Wild for STEM, but as always, before we dig into that, I want to dig a little bit more into your story. Can you tell us a story about young Tracy that tells us a bit about how you got to where you are today?
In my schooling, in my youth, I was always very interested in science and maths, bit of politics, but that I didn't end up proceeding that direction. So I was, after high school, torn at the time between politics and math, and then I decided to go with math and science as my degree for university. So I went to university. I went to Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, California, and studied math and science. And then after I completed my degree, I was, of course, looking for work. I was looking for something related to math that I could use what I had learned in school in my career. So I was interested in economics and math and how that worked together. I was looking for roles in an analyst type of position, and I didn't understand at the time that that was such a broad type of role. So I ended up interviewing at a company that helped sell life insurance. I didn't end up getting that role, but one of the founders was also a founder of a tech startup and said that I would be a good fit for that role and wanted to have me come back and talk to them. Long story short, I joined that organization and learned a lot on the job about software engineering, and I grew my career from that tiny little startup. That startup was acquired, and so my career, in software just went from there. It wasn't something I had planned. It wasn't even something I had considered a career in software or technology or coding or anything like that. So that's sort of how I ended up here. A math background is helpful in that analytical thinking and problem solving space. So that's how I'm ended up here.
Amazing. It's there's so many little bits and pieces in there I could also dig into it. I think, even back at the start where you said, I decided between maths and politics. It's like, wow, I wouldn't have thought, chalk and cheese. I would have thought they're quite different. But it's also an interesting story just about the synchronicity. Is that the right word? But, just that, you go for this role, don't get that role, but it lands you in a different network and a different role, and that lands you where you are today, and just seizing those opportunities as they come, even if they're not quite what you expected at the start.
Yeah, so the acquisition that I mentioned earlier, the company that acquired our small California startup was originally based in Melbourne, and they expanded into the US, and they're the organization that acquired us. And so we have an office in California and in Melbourne and in Seattle as well. So an opportunity arose in our Melbourne office, and I really wanted to get involved in that area of the business. It was a new team that we were building to take on a very important role in that business.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Well, we're very happy to have you here. So excellent. All right. So, as part of that, I know that you've been, part of the different synchronicity and different opportunities. I know you've also been part of the Wild for STEM program, which is Women in Leadership Development. Uh, it's a program. They've got a couple of programs, I think, actually, Women in Leadership Development. There's the Wild program and there's Wild Board X. And as I understand it, you've been a participant in one, maybe both of those programs. And that involves supporting, encouraging, giving women the skills to get into the boardroom. So I would love to hear more about it. Tell us about that, maybe. Yeah, tell us first up what the program is, which one you participated in, and then let's dig in around what that's all about.
Yeah, I was a participant of the 2024 Wild for STEM program. This is a program that helps with the education and experience to get on a board role. So there's three main components to the program. One is the AICD course. The other aspect is a board observership, a short-term board observership, and then a retreat where we do more workshopping and resume building and things like that.
You've done the company directors course through this program, and then you did an observership program. First up, just tell us, how did you know about the program? How did you end up doing it?
I am pretty sure that I found out about the program through the Tech Leading Ladies community. And through that, I may have also seen it on LinkedIn. And so it popped up, for women who have education and higher education in STEM, which seemed like a great fit for me. I'd never considered being on a board as an occupation or an area of growth. And so it was something I saw as a great opportunity, and I applied and fortunately got into the program.
Fantastic. Okay. So there's some learning through the Institute of Company Directors. There's a board observership component and there's a retreat component. Tell us more, in as much detail as you're able. Tell us more about the board observership part of the program. Where did you do your observership? As I say, in as much detail as you're able to share. What did you observe? How did that play out for you?
Yeah, so a colleague of mine, their relative was a chairperson on a board, and they were gracious enough to support me in observing one of their board meetings.
Right. Actually, does the program usually provide the board, or does the participant provide the board?
In this case, the participant
Yes.
uses their network to find a board that they find interesting and would be happy to observe a board meeting.
Okay. And tell me about, how did you prepare? You're going to this board meeting to observe. How did you prepare yourself for that? How did you prepare yourself for it?
Yeah, so I had a couple sessions with the person who was sponsoring me in the meeting. So the person who supported me going, they shared with me a little bit about what was going to be discussed and what I could, keep an eye out for. They also gave me a little bit of an assignment as to what I could do, take notes on in the meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, they let me share my observations about that assignment that they gave me. So it was a pretty neat experience.
Are you able to tell us what the assignment was? You don't need to if it's confidential, but are you able to? Well, are you able to tell us the organisation that you observed the board of? You might not be able to, so I'm just checking.
I'm not sure if I'm able to disclose that one.
That's okay. That's all right. Are you able, without then any identifying information, are you able to tell us broadly about what the assignment was? I love that you were set for your observation.
Yeah, I think that's not, specifically sensitive. I was tasked with identifying areas where the board showed that they exhibited their values as a board. So I understood their values as a board and could pick out when things happened or people said things that were in support of those values.
Interesting. Oh my gosh, that is so interesting to know that that's what
Yeah.
the chair wanted you to focus on. I love that. It is, I would say it's such a key thing for board directors to know the values of the organization and to exhibit them in the boardroom, but it's not always done. So that is fabulous. Did they pass the test, Tracy? Were you able to observe the values in practice?
They did, yes. I noted quite a few for each of the different values, quite a few examples that they showed.
And then you reflected that back at the end of the meeting, did you, to the board members?
I did, yes. So for each of the values, I shared at least one example that I found.
How fantastic. Okay. Um, and then how did that feed into had you already done the company directors course when you did the board observation?
Yes, I did. So I understood, culture in the boardroom and uh, a bit about, finance and legal and um, the various topics that the AICD course covers. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so in that board observation, other than your assignment being set for you, I'm just wondering what other, having done the company directors course and then observing it live, did anything that stand out for you about that board practice in practice? At least, is there anything you're able to share with us without revealing confidentialities? What else did you observe about board practice in practice?
Yeah, I in a general way that I can share. There was some new regulation that had to come out, and so this was the first board meeting where they had started to discuss that regulation, and I found that really interesting. It being something new that a board has to,
Yes.
deal with or observe or govern. It was an interesting topic.
And again, if you're able to tell us, I'm wondering, were you provided with the whole board pack prior to the board meeting, like all of the reading?
No, no.
Ah,
So I had yeah, that would be very confidential. I
yes.
just had easy access to a digital version that I sometimes scrolled through. It
I
was hard to keep track, like follow along, just because I wasn't familiar with the entire pack. So I did my best.
Yes. Okay. So then using that as part of the program, so you do the company directors course, you observe a board meeting, and presumably different people learn different things from that. And then there's a retreat or an immersive at the end of it. Actually, how many are in the group? When you're doing this program, how many are in the group?
I believe it was about 25 of us
Okay.
that did
And
the program in 2024.
and you come together after you've done the company directors course and the board observation. Is that right?
Yes, the board observation could happen at any time. So the program ran from January till October was when the board observership was due, in a sense,
Yeah.
and the retreat happened in July. So it
Okay.
you could have done the retreat first and then the board observership after.
Okay. And are you able to tell us in that retreat, what some of the things were that you covered off in that learning as well?
Yeah, one of the workshops I remember that I really enjoyed was about executive presence, how to give, meaningful presentations and talks and how to plan them and uh, different tips and techniques on how to bring your best presence to uh, any talk or any meeting that you go to.
Interesting. Did you use that when you did? Yeah. What can you remember any of the tips from that you might have then used?
The facilitator or coach, she
Yes.
did provide a sheet that I have used since.
Fantastic.
when giving some of my tech talks. So it's broadly speaking, it's sort of like rule of three. So you um, have three main things you want to get across, and for each of them, you say it, back it up, wrap it up. Can I give credit for that one?
Oh, yeah, I would love you to. Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
say it, back it up, wrap it up. That is Sharon Longridge.
Fantastic. Okay. So in 2024, you've done this program. It involves doing the company director's course. It involves this retreat, which covers all sorts of learning like executive presence. And you do a board observation. What's next for you, Tracy?
Well, what's next for me is I'd love to find a that I would love to fill.
Mm.
So that means finding a board that I would feel really passionate about, and matching the skills that they're looking to fill as well.
Yeah, amazing. So, and I should say, Tracy's joining the Take On Board Kickstarter crew in 2025 to further her board, I don't know, board intentions and her board capability. And we're going to cover some of this in the program. But hey, you're on the podcast now, so why don't we share some of your incredible skills? What would you say are your three key skills for the boardroom?
I would say risk and strategy.
Yeah,
Would you call that one or two?
either
Uh,
either. Yep.
I use risk skills in my day to day work career. Looking for risk in business sense and technology sense, in the day-to-day work that we do sense.
Yeah.
And then strategy, I look for ways that technology can help advance the business and give us better outcomes. And what would a third one be? I guess
Tech.
technology.
Yes. I was going to say, Tracy, if you don't say technology, yes, and tech. Okay.
Yes, and technology.
So key skills around risk, strategy, technology. If you could snap your fingers and land in the boardroom of any organization tomorrow, what would that organization look like? What sector is it? What sort of boardroom would you ideally want to land in?
Yeah. So I would imagine it would be an organization that's probably not too large, as it would be my first board role. I would, need to build a bit more skills before I could take on, say, a listed company board role. Um, Sector, I'm not too particular about what sector, but I imagine it would need to be, to bring my best and provide the best skill set for the organization would need to be something where technology is quite relevant. So it could
Yeah.
be a technology business, or it could be a technology adjacent business.
Yeah. It's hard to know what organization is not at least tech adjacent these days, really. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it could be could be anything in there. Okay. All right. Well, Take On Board community, if you're listening in and you need, you're in a tech or a tech adjacent organization, you're looking for somebody for your boardroom that's got skills around risk, strategy, and tech. Of course. I was like, what's the third one she said? Risk, strategy, and tech. Get in touch with Tracy. Her LinkedIn will be linked in the show notes. Because why not? Or why not get you a board role before you've even started Board Kickstarter, Tracy?
Sounds
Okay.
great.
So that's the next step for you, is to build on this leadership experience that you've already got, to leverage it into some board roles, and then leveraging those board roles up again. I just want to pivot to a slightly different topic, because I talked about tech leading ladies in your introduction, and you talked about it as being part of what got you into this program. You're one of the co-conveners, I think it's called, of Tech Leading Ladies. What is Tech Leading Ladies? Let's do a little plug for them as well. Tell us about Tech Leading Ladies.
So, Tech Leading Ladies, we're a community of women and gender diverse individuals to help women and gender diverse individuals in technology in their leadership. So we're working to bridge the gap in gender diversity and technology leadership.
I imagine that's quite the gap. Am I right in that?
Uh, yes, studies show that women in technology are promoted far less often and with less speed than men are, and you go to tech conferences and it's still very significantly
Yeah.
men versus women,
Yes.
unless it's a women and conference
Yes.
specifically.
Oh, well, dare I say it, Tracy, you'll fit right into the boardroom, because even though great progress has been made in boardrooms in terms of gender equality, they're still not equal. So you'll feel sadly right at home coming from a male dominated world. Um, I just want to
Yeah.
switch back to the Wild for STEM program for a minute, just so people listening can get a little bit of an idea about it. Just again, in as much detail as you're able to share, tell us about the sorts of other participants, like who were, what sort of background did they have? Where did they work? Like, who are the women and gender diverse people that participate in this Wild for STEM program?
Yeah, because it was for women in STEM, there were quite a lot of women from other sciences, like bio. What would you say? What's a bio field?
Biotech,
Women
biology.
from
Yeah,
bio, yeah, biotech. That's it. Women from biotech, women from chemistry
yeah,
types of organizations, um, all sorts of sciences, even geology, civil engineering.
amazing.
So any science
Mm,
organization,
yes.
there were I think women representing all of them, as
Oh
many
my
as
God.
them I can think of.
It must have been amazing, because I imagine all of those areas, the STEM world broadly is probably male dominated. Did you come into particularly the immersive together and kind of look around the room and go, oh my God, like we're all women? This is not what we're used to. How did it feel to be, in a STEM space that was just for women?
Yeah, it's actually quite freeing in a way when you're doing a workshop with 20, 25 other women. There isn't as much hesitation to speak out, or fear of like you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I think the whole group was a lot more willing to be open, willing to be vulnerable, and all learn together.
Fantastic. Okay. And it's a little bit of a Dorothy Dixer, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you recommend the program, the Wild for STEM program?
Definitely. It is a great program. It's got great objectives, and the women involved are all very accomplished. They're all very accomplished in their careers, and learning about what it means to be on a board and how they can improve their careers. So everyone is, eager to help each other out and learn from each other. Uh, it was a really great course, the AICD course in particular. We had really great facilitators, and the retreat was really well put together, really worth the time and energy involved. And I really appreciate everything that the organizers and sponsors did for that program and are still doing.
Amazing. Okay. So, this has been a really great introduction to that program. I didn't know about it, I don't think, until I spoke to you. And when I looked it up, I'm like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity, both for individuals who work in the STEM sector, but also I think for boards who operate in that sector to be part of the observership program. So we'll make sure we put a link in the show notes to the program. So just before we wrap it up, what are the key points you want people to take away from the conversation that we've had today?
From my personal experience, I think it's important to take any opportunity that arises for you. Uh,
Yeah.
if I hadn't taken an opportunity in a role that I had not expected, then I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah.
I had a couple other points. I think if you're interested in a program that you find that would be valuable for you for personal reasons or for your career, then take a chance, apply. If you get in, give it your best and learn from the experience.
Yeah.
And find your people. Find a
Mm.
community where you feel comfortable, meet people in the community, go to meetups, go to conferences, expand, your horizons. And you never know, the next person you meet might be the best mentor you've ever had or get you the greatest role you never thought you were looking for.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Well, I can imagine that the Wild for STEM people are now part of your community. Tech Leading Ladies is definitely part of your community. And we wholeheartedly welcome you to the Take on Board community as well. So
Thank
in
you so
terms
much. Hell yeah.
so in terms of resources, we will definitely share the link to the Wild for STEM program. Is there any other resources you would like to share with the Take on Board community? There doesn't have to be.
Did I put anything in the form?
No, no, you actually didn't. But will you know
Oh,
what? I'm going to
okay.
ask that question. I'm going
Yeah.
to ask that question again, and we'll just use Wild for STEM. So, um,
Yeah. Okay.
Tracy, we normally share a resource with the Take on Board community, but this whole conversation has been the resource about the Wild for STEM program. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we put a link to that in the show notes for people so that they can look up more about the program. So
Fantastic.
thank you. Thank you so much for being open to the invitation to come and talk about this amazing program.